Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon update on Money FM 89.3 this Friday. I'm Rachel Kelly and it's great to be back with you on social media. We're broadcasting to you live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, as well as on your Money FM 89.3 radio. I'm joined in the studio, of course, by Hongbin Jong.
Hello.
And we're going to be joined in just a bit by Adrian Chu, who's CEO and founder of Career Agility. He is our resident career strategist, and he is going to tell us what you need to know when it comes to rewriting your CV, especially if you're looking to start the new year with a new job. You know, often people ask, how long does your CV need to be, right? 1 page, 2 page, a little bit longer? What words do you need to include? What words should you take out? How should you cater your CV depending on the industry that you're looking to enter? What if you're looking to do a career shift? What if you've taken a gap? Should you include that? What if you had a really short stint at a particular organization? Should you include that in your CV? Adrian is going to tell us. If you've got a question for Adrian, you can pop it in the comments box below. Hongbin is keeping a close eye out for your questions, or you can text us. I've got the studio phone right here. Ding 88550893. I'll take a look at the phone and I will ask Adrian anything you want to know when it comes to your career, of course. So let's welcome Adrian to the show.
Hello, good afternoon, Rachel, and hi, Hongwen. How are you?
Hi.
Hi, Adrian. It's been a while. Have you been keeping well?
Oh yeah, I've been keeping well. I've been keeping busy with the launch of our book and everything. But today's topic on CV is really exciting because it's all about questions, and I'm here to help all our listeners.
And we have many, many questions. Our listeners, I'm sure, have many questions. I have many questions. Hong Bin has many questions. Not that our boss, because I know you're listening, you don't need to be worried. We just want to know. Okay? So let's start off with the first one, the first question that we want to ask you. What are the main challenges for people or main concerns that they have when it comes to taking a look at their CV? What are some of the key issues that they need to know about?
Well, from our experience as career strategists, whenever it comes to CVs, one of the things that our clients usually struggle with is what do we put into the CV itself? Is it relevant? Should I be putting it? And how do I phrase it? So a lot of people that we've seen and a lot of CVs we've looked at, people tend to put everything in it, and it ends up being a very thick document which won't work. So you have to be selective. You need to know what to put in and you need to know what to take out. So it's not story of your whole life, just the salient bits.
Okay, and when you say not story of your whole life, but just the salient bits, what is important there? What should you include?
Well, it depends a lot on the job you're applying for. And what we always say is that you should customize every CV for every job and every role that you apply for. You should not send a cookie cutter standard CV to every job. Different jobs have different requirements. So the trick is in tailoring your CV to match the role, to match the audience.
Okay, so can you give us an example then? Because often they say you've got to match your CV to match the role. Does that mean that you should perhaps use terminology from the job role posting in your CV? Or, how do you strike a balance? How much should you include from that posting without making it too obvious that you are perhaps trying to overly cater to that particular job?
Well, we don't recommend cutting and pasting the entire job description into your CV. But if you are, for instance, if you're in finance and if the role
Okay.
requires a finance leader who has experience in, say, mergers and acquisitions, the last thing you want to talk about on your CV especially is about how you've done operations, how you've done payroll and everything. No, focus and tailor your CV to what's needed, which is mergers and acquisitions. Give very good examples, recent examples, include interesting data in there, interesting points, and most importantly, your role and responsibilities in that particular M&A. So that's what we mean when we say tailor your CV to the job itself you're applying. Anything else is just a corollary and extra. Just make sure it's focused.
The traditional CV format, you've got perhaps a picture. Do we need a picture of yourself?
I That's a great question. I generally do not recommend having a picture there because if they want to have a picture, your picture should be ready on LinkedIn. So a picture there, unless it's a modeling job which you're applying for, and you do need to have a picture in there. Most of the time, we actually recommend, no, probably not.
Okay. So you've got your photo, you've got a brief summary about yourself. Do you need
Mhm.
to include your obviously your contact number, your email, your nationality, then a bit of a summary, and the summary would include, a brief summary of yourself, your history, maybe some hobbies, your career background.
Mhm.
So then do you list it? And how much detail do you need to go into each of the positions perhaps that you've held in the past? Is it just a few bullet points? Or perhaps a paragraph.
I think it all depends on how many years you've worked. Whatever it is, you have to keep the document within 2.5, maximum 3 pages.
Okay.
So if you had like many jobs, then you probably need to keep it short and succinct on each point. Bullet points work just as well. One thing I always am very tickled about is when people dump their entire job description into the role, into the CV itself, which I think it's counterproductive because if it's a finance manager role, right, and the person who's going to read your CV is a finance director who's the hiring manager, it's no point putting the JD in there because she already knows what your job title finance manager does. So I would recommend that you put in only the relevant pieces of information in, and I would rather spend more time talking about the achievements. What have I
Okay.
done? What have I implemented?
And when it comes to achievements, let's talk about educational achievements. How far back do you need to go?
You'll be surprised, no, Rachel. I've seen CVs with primary school results, transcripts all included.
I know.
It's terrible, but it's not quite necessary. I think
Okay.
your basic degree, starting from there should be good enough. But what a lot of employers want to see is not just the degree itself, but which could have happened like 15, 20 years ago. But what have you done in the interim? Whether you've taken up any courses, whether you've been on a self-improvement journey, and more importantly, have you taken up courses lately that are relevant to the job once again that you are applying for?
Okay, so we've got a listener who's sent us a message just to say thank you. Well, I hope, Kamarul, you're enjoying the interview. Thanks for joining us again today. Adrian, we touched on language that's used in our CV and taking language from the job description to perhaps illustrate that you are a suitable candidate. But what other kinds of language should we use? Often I read articles that say that you shouldn't be passive, you should be assertive and show that you've been proactive in your past positions. Terms like I achieved this or I was responsible for that. Is that true? I mean, what do you think works?
It depends. Once again, for me, I think using active verbs helps, but all those fancy words do help as well. Okay, to a
Okay.
certain extent. But what I think it's important, especially during in the CV itself and during the interview, is not to use the word we rather than I, because the CV is about you. And I know even though it's a team effort, that inclination to my team did this, my team did that, but I'm not hiring your team. I'm hiring you. So keep the examples focused on what you did in particular, what were the results, and how you achieved them. One thing we always want to tell our clients and all our listeners and viewers here today is your CV, the object of your CV is not to get you hired. Okay? No one hires off a
Isn't it?
CV. No. The objective of the CV is to get them interested enough to interview you. It's a one step in itself. So it's not just to get you hired per se. You know what I mean?
It's to
So
get your foot in the door.
is to get your foot in the door. A lot of people forget that, and that's why they jam everything in, and in the hope that if I put everything in, and they're gonna fall in love with me on that piece of paper, and then I'm gonna get a job. No, so keep it short, keep it sweet. And the truth is, hiring managers don't really spend that much time reading CVs apart from a few salient points. So that's why you have to be short, succinct, and not too long-winded. Otherwise, you're gonna lose the plot.
We're speaking with Adrian Chu, who's CEO and founder of Career Agility. We're talking about what you should and should not leave in your CV. CV do's and don'ts if you're looking to start the new year with a new job. Adrian, on the back of that, we often read that EQ is becoming more important, especially on the back of the pandemic where teams were out of touch. You needed a leader or a manager who was able to connect. how does that translate to what you put in your CV? Is it relevant, or as you mentioned, the CV is just the foot in the door? Leave the EQ to the side until you get to the interview.
Well, I think it's more about achievements. Maybe if it's a very EQ heavy job, then you might want to highlight achievements where you have managed a team, or you've seen the business through a crisis,
Right.
or examples where EQ was required and you stepped up to the plate and you batted a home run. So it's all about, once again, you have only so much limited space on your three-page document, which is a CV. I would rather keep the real estate to achievements rather than just the job descriptions. And if it's a job description, just limit it to the scope, scale, what you've done, and spend a bit more time on the fantastic achievements and work that you've done in your previous jobs.
Hi, I'm Hong Bin. Adrian, I have a question for you. So, beyond a CV, is a cover letter still relevant?
That's a great question, Hongbin. It's if you look back. Okay, I'm not going to sound really old here, but if you look back in the old days where CVs were mailed and posted, were printed and mailed and posted, you needed a cover letter to put it on top of the CV before you lick the stamp and seal the envelope and mail it off, right? In today's context, when you are uploading a CV or if you are submitting an electronic CV, you don't really need to have a cover letter on the CV itself, because a lot of times the cover letter is the email is the cover letter. So you don't have to, but some application systems online, they do require you to put in a cover letter. Then once again, you just have one standard cover letter which you can put in. But the bigger question is, what do we write on a cover letter and how long?
Yes.
So
Right.
what do we write
Yeah.
on the cover letter and how long?
I was creating a pregnant pause there for suspense. So what we are looking suspense. Okay, so what we are looking at is the cover letter should just be short. Okay, because the reader only has maybe 20 seconds of mind space to read your CV. The last thing you want is to have the reader spend 15 seconds or 20 seconds on your cover letter and oops, okay, no time. So I would recommend that the cover letter be short, succinct, to the point. 3 reasons why they should have a look at the CV itself. So once again, if the CV's function is to get the appointment, get the interview, to appear relevant enough for them to reach out to you and get the interview, the function of the cover letter is for them to, hey, this person's really interesting. Let me open up the CV to have a look. So once again, the strategy is be relevant, be to the point, be clear, and oh, that's interesting. Let me see what the CV is like. So each piece of the process has a specific objective, and if you understand that, you're almost half the battle is won.
So, Adrian, I've got to ask. We're talking about cover letter format, CV format, and you have services now where people will help you to write your CV. We've seen video CVs. I've seen PowerPoint presentation CVs emailed in as well. I mean, what would you say to that? How important is the format? Is a video for? I mean, obviously, if you're in broadcast, right, you want to send your show reeled or what you've
all
done
of
in the
it, right?
past.
Yeah.
But I've also seen those that are going for corporate jobs send in a video link to a video CV where they've introduced themselves. Maybe they've got like Marina Bay Sands in the background. And, they make it very dramatic and impactful because they want to stand out because it can be competitive in certain industries. Does that really make a difference? I mean, A for effort, but how far is that going to get you?
Yeah, that's a good point, Rachel. But the funny thing is, if it's in the creative industry and if it's a creative role that you want, maybe that could work. But if you're
Yeah.
applying for an auditor role
Yes.
or something that's like a finance, a tax consultant, I don't know about the effectiveness of a video, but I think what's more important is actually your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn profile needs to be up to date, and very clear on what you do and what you can do as well. So I wouldn't spend too much time on a video CV. I would rather invest more time on making sure that my LinkedIn profile is square and really up to date.
Okay, and speaking of Square and up to date, I've got so many questions for you today, Adrian. Come on, listeners, if you've got anything, text us 88550893. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep talking to Adrian. There's a whole laundry list of things that I want to ask you here. So another thing, you mentioned in terms of relevant experience and keeping your LinkedIn up to date. What if you take a career break? Say you go overseas to look after a relative for a little bit. You're out of the industry for, say, 1 year or 6 months, or you start with another organization, it doesn't quite work out, you don't make it through the probation period. Maybe that's of your own choice, maybe not. Do you include that in your CV, in your LinkedIn? And if you have, taken a career break, how important is it to mention that? Or is that something that you're going to get marked down on when it comes to getting your foot in the door? Maybe people might consider that, or may have the perception that you're a job hopper. Lots of points in there, Adrian, I know.
Yeah, I know. The bottom line is this: if you're on a career break, well, you're on a career break.
Yeah.
Especially in today's post-COVID situation, post-COVID environment, a lot of people are on career breaks. If you've been retrenched or you've been let go, embrace it, because everyone else, look, Facebook and Twitter just let go like half their troops. So it's quite normal, I would say. So it's not a black mark, or it's not something to be ashamed of, because it's happened. And if it's happened to you, embrace it. Just say, look, there was a reorganization, and I took a career break. What's more important is not the duration of the career break, but if you can actually say that during the career break, I picked up a certification in this, I went for that course, I got my master's. Even if you say, no, I took a break and I went to Myanmar to build homes for orphans. If you can justify and explain what you did during the career break, I don't think hiring managers would hold it against you. So if you're on a career break, or if you've been on a career break, put it down on your CV. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, but just be prepared to explain why it happened and what you learned from the career break. I think a lot of HR managers and hiring managers are quite understanding about that.
So what if, let's say you're a fresh grad and you don't have a lot of experiences? What do you suggest putting on your CV?
I would
That's a good
say
question.
it's great, especially there are a lot of young fresh grads hitting the market right now. My suggestion is to put in your whatever ECAs or CCAs that you've had, or your achievements that you've had in university, into the CV. If, for instance, if you worked vacation jobs or you've interned, put it in as well, because it's really useful for those of you who have not done anything much in university. Just make sure that if you still have got a year left or a year or two left, go out and get the experience so that you have something to write about. For me personally, I ran my own business in when I was in university. I started a small business,
Wow.
and I included it all into my CV, and it caught the attention of my first employer, which is a really large petrochemical company, and it stood out. So it's not too late to create your own story when you're developing your career in the years ahead. So for all of you who are still studying out there in university, start building your career story now.
Adrian, we often talk on the show about timing the market, right? When it comes to stocks and investment matters. What about timing the career market? When is the right time to start looking or applying for a job? Obviously, we're in November now. We're coming to the end of the year. A lot of people might be going off on holidays, so it could take a little bit longer to secure a position. Is there ever a right time or a season when it comes to moving and sending your CV out to the company that you'd hope to join?
Good question, Rachel. The short answer to that is the best time to start looking for a job is 6 months ago. So even if you're not in the job search mode, you should be in the job search mode. Open up to opportunities in the market, so that when the time comes for you to really want to look for a job, you would have a good lay of the land. You would have networked. You would have all your marketing materials ready, so that the time for landing a new role will be much shorter. So the short answer to that is, it should have been done some time back. But if you are just starting now, it normally takes anywhere between 3 to 6 months to land the role that you want. That's the right role. So don't be too stressed out if after the fifth week and you've not landed anything and say, oh no, something's wrong. It takes time to get the process rolling and to land into the role that you really want.
Okay, Adrian. Well, time has flown by. We've just got about a minute left. I want to ask you your top 3 tips when it comes to writing a CV.
Okay. Number one, keep it short, keep it simple, and keep it relevant. Don't try your best to personalize it. And of course, remember it's a brochure. It's not the operating manual. So keep it relevant. Make it interesting enough for them to want to meet up with you. But don't Anything more than 3 pages, no, don't do it.
Okay, Adrian. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you, Adrian. You too. We've been speaking with Adrian Chu, CEO and founder of Career Agility, right here on Money FM 89.3. For those of you joining us on social media, we're going to take a short break for the news. But for those joining us on your radio station, stay tuned. News headlines coming up.
Money FM 89.3.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the afternoon update on Money FM 89.3, or you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I hope you're having a great Friday. Well, what a wonderful interview we just had with Adrian Chu, who is the CEO and founder of Career Agility. And he shared with us the top tips and do's and don'ts that you need to know when it comes to your CV. And I think my key takeaways, I'll give you three. Often you wonder, how long should your CV be? Well, Adrian says no longer than 3 pages. He also reminded us that your CV is really, I guess, a brochure to get your foot in the door. So you don't need to give a long explanation of what you did last summer and your last trip to Japan. Keep it short. Just talk about your relevant career experience. And when it comes to the language, he also highlighted we often talk about teamwork, but focus on yourself. For the CV, it's okay to be a little bit selfish. That's according to Adrian. So if you want to listen to that conversation again, you can go and check out this video on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. His interview is right at the beginning, or you can head over to the Money FM 893 website and take a look for the afternoon update. All of our past interviews will be available there along with Adrian's. Okay, now coming up this hour on the show, we're going to dive into the markets with Jeff Howie, market strategist at the SGX, taking a look at where the STI is at the moment, firmly in the green, up 1.7% as we come to the last 2 hours. Well, it's just under 2 hours of the trading day. So let's check in with Jeff now.
Money FM 89.3. Financial updates from the Business Times.
So as I mentioned, we're taking a look at the Singapore markets, the Straits Times Index in the green, up 1.7%, 3,227 points. Advances leading the pack, 398 to 180 decliners. Healthy volume today. We've got 1.7 billion securities worth $1.43 billion changing hands so far. Jeff joins us now. Jeff Howie, market strategist at the SGX, to help us understand what's been moving this week and analyze these numbers. Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Rachel. Good afternoon.
Oh, good to have you with us, Jeff. Have you had a good week?
Yeah, and I saw you during the week, which is a highlight.
Wow. I was going to say long time no see. Yes, I saw Jeff at the HSBC 2023 Outlook that was presented by HSBC and organized by the Straits Times. And he gave a fantastic panel session with our colleagues from the Straits Times as well as HSBC. It was really interesting, actually, Jeff.
Yeah, it was. The problem with panels, they can just go too quickly sometimes, right?
I know an hour is never enough.
Yeah, not these days.
Especially when you're trying to digest 2022 and what to look out for in the year ahead with the year that we've had or the last few years that we've been having.
Yeah, and definitely markets on the move at the moment, big time.
That's right. And let's just take a look at this week, Jeff. I mean, or even today.
Yeah. So this week and today, we've both continued the previous week's momentum. And we've seen in the last few weeks now that the Friday session accounts for quite a bit of the weekly gains, significant portion. And you might recall back in 2020, back in the days of COVID, you'd had developments over the weekend and the declines in the market, much of the declines happened on the Monday. Whereas data is so important at the moment from a growth, inflation, trade, geopolitical perspective that Fridays generally have been busy, not necessarily in the green, but certainly more turnover than usual. So we saw the momentum really continue this week. So the STI is up 3% so far this week. So ended last week at 31.30 and it's up around the 32.20s today. And it brings the year-to-date total return to 7% compared to a still decline for the FTSE Developed Index, which is down 15%. But I think just par for the course, take it into perspective. We had a pretty quick 320 point decline from the 32.90 close back on the 13th of September, which preceded a pretty bad inflation report in the US and a pretty big sell-off in the US on the 13th of September evening. So from that 32.90 high back on the 13th of September, we fell down to this 2970 close on the 21st of October. So that's a 5-6 week drop of around 320 points. And since then, since the 21st of October, we've recovered 250 points of the 320 points. So that's close to what, three quarters, 75% of that original drop. So the momentum has been obviously pretty strong, both on the down and the upside. And it really encapsulates what we're seeing in global markets now. Just because there might not be so much liquidity, it doesn't mean that all the key data points, sectors, and different market drivers are not still creating dynamic market conditions, which we are clearly seeing.
And just taking a look at regional stocks, I mean, I was looking at the MSCI Asia Pacific Index. I think it's climbed as much as 4.6%, on track for its best weekly gain since 2020. Hong Kong's benchmark, it opened at around 6%. It later surged around 7% this morning.
Yeah, yeah. You know why? It's you'd say it's a what's it? Partial rebound, measured partial rebound week, because technology stocks, and for that matter REITs as well, have led the global stock market lower this year. But this week it's those two sectors that have actually led the global stock market higher. So our FTSE ST REIT index has generated a 6% total return so far this year. FTSE EPRA REIT index is up 5%. If you look at the actual REITs that have been leading, that's so far this week, it was a Digital Core REIT, Cromwell European REIT, CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust, First REIT, and Fraser Logistics and Commercial Trust. So on the tech front as well, you've got the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index up 10% for the Asia week. At the same time, AEM Holdings is up 8%, UMS is up 12%, Franken's up 15%.
And who are the biggest movers this week? I've seen when I was talking to Rachel every day with Market View, we'd be talking about Subcorp Marine and how it's like the top actively traded counter buy in terms of volume. Is it because of that merger with Keppel Corp that we saw last week?
Yeah, look, there's probably, if you look at the share price, it's been more consolidating this week. Sembcorp Marine is due to provide its third quarter business updates before the Tuesday open. So there haven't been any major corporate announcements, but it did end last week at 13.4 cents, and I think it's now around 13.5 cents. So as we said, it's consolidating around. But at the same time, so that's kind of a laggard when you consider the momentum in the market. But you've got to also consider that, I guess, its most adjacent key market is energy, and Brent crude futures have declined 5% so far this week. And so we've seen measured moves in Golden Energy and Resources, Geo Energy Resources, RH Petrogas, and Rex International. Those four upstream energy players have actually averaged a 5% decline this week. And the major catalyst, of course, was that EIA report showing that inventories in the US had actually doubled what they were expected to print. So that was a key driver. But I guess one more other mover that doesn't really, because as you say, Sembcorp Marine's right up the top there and day-to-day volumes, Hong Bin, but another small little segment of the market that has actually been on the move but doesn't kind of rank that high in the daily turnover rankings is the personal protection equipment and the rubber glove manufacturer and distributors. So since the beginning of November, we have seen a small tick up in global COVID-19 cases. So we were around 320,000 daily smoothed average cases at the beginning of November, and that's crept back up to around 350,000. So you've seen Top Glove, Riverstone, UG Healthcare, as well as the PPE provider Medtex International Corp. They've actually averaged double-digit 11% gain so far this week.
Taking a look at a number of other sectors now, I want to start off and take a look at the telcos. And actually, telco is my pick of the week. I'm not going to tell you which one yet, although I have picked a telco in the past. So it's I know a bit of a no-brainer there. But I was just taking a look at shares of Singtel. They're one of the biggest movers today in terms of value turnover. They're up around 2.3% at the moment. They just released their earnings. So did StarHub. What's your take on the telco sector, Jeff?
Yeah, see, I'm looking at it right now as well. You've got $80 million a day So that's what yesterday it actually traded double its normal daily turnover after
Right.
reporting before the open. So um, yeah, there was a surprise for Singtel. It announced a comparable interim dividend of 4.6 cents per share,
That's right.
but it did surprise by announcing that special dividend shares of 5 cents in two tranches. So the first tranche will be 2.5 cents. And that's on these asset recycling initiatives, part of the strategic transformation process. So that 4.6 cent interim dividend and the 2.5 cent first tranche, it actually goes ex-dividend next Friday on the 18th of November. Um, I thought among the highlights, which is super important for the telecommunications industry, is the digitalization part of it, Rachel. So we saw NCS, which has obviously been repositioned as the group's digital champion, capitalize on the digitalization trend. I think it added, if I'm not wrong, it was new bookings of 1.3 billion Sing, so that brings its total order book to 3.5 billion Sing.
Right.
And as you say, it's a big trader. It ranks as our most it ranks among our most traded stocks here in Singapore, and it's generally as much as 6% of the day-to-day market turnover. That one stock in particular, it's moved from $2.32 at the end of last year to around these $2.70 levels at the moment, and it's also been recipient to the most net institutional inflows so far this year in the vicinity of 850 million Sing dollars.
Okay.
Well, for me, I'm gonna stick to my, I still have travel blues. So, as the travel recovery continues, I'm going to pick Genting Singapore. I mean, they posted their earnings, and I think it more than doubled, a more than 100% increase in net profit for its third quarter. Did you expect that, Jeff?
Yeah, we did see so far Gunting Singapore also among the 10 stocks that have seen the most net institutional flows so far this week. And I think the stock is also among the 10 that have seen the most institutional inflows for the year. So I think, yeah, that was pretty much in expectations. Regional reopenings, services economy has been a very important part of Singapore's economic recovery this year. And much of all those I guess I have to keep saying uneven economic forces have actually transcended into the stock market.
Jeff, as you mentioned, we've had a number of earnings out over the past week. What's your take on how earnings season's going so far?
Yeah, I think I mean so far so good because it's been what 2 weeks, and it has coincided with the recovery. But so the earnings is has pretty much come in line, I think, with expectations. Some slightly below, some slightly above. But yeah, as we've seen, the market sort of tells us how it's interpreted the results, and it has been a pretty strong 250 point move since the 21st of October. But
Meanwhile,
Rachel, yeah, sorry,
it's
the
okay.
big
Go ahead.
macro
Go
stuff.
ahead.
Yeah. Hongbin, sorry, the big macro stuff is still overhanging though. We can't put the market moves all down to the earnings front. Just as you
That's
can't.
right.
Yeah. So that's been on the radar.
And a lot happening in the region at the moment. I mean, we've got G20 just around the corner. Everyone's been talking about the midterms. Obviously, this week we had COP27 as well. Everyone's in Cambodia right now.
Yeah,
Well,
for
we're not
ASEAN.
in Cambodia, but yes, those that are involved in ASEAN are in Cambodia right now. How do all of these large events play into the markets, Jeff?
They do because while a lot of the momentum follows what's happening with monetary conditions, are they going to be tightened more? Are they going to be less tightened? You've you've still got the building of these segments. Case in point, so there'll be a lot of ASEAN focus next week as well,
Right.
and you've got electrification of vehicles, a really big driver of growth here in ASEAN. Okay, and that's the electronics industry as well is super important, and the whole digital communication business as well. So these help produce these segments for the market, not just for the stock market, but for the startups and so forth.
And meanwhile, over in the US, we saw that US inflation report. Any surprises there for you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, not I wasn't surprised, but the markets were, because if you look at it, first of all, it came in an hour later because US has come out of daylight savings, so it's now 9:30 in the evening, not 8:30, and the number did come in below expectations. So the all items headline number was up 7.7% year on year. So that's the lowest year on year print since January, and that's when the CPI came in at 7.5%. Month on month, it was comparable. It was up 0.4%. But the key gauge, the key thing is it's marked further deceleration from that 9.1% so far peak in June June of 2022. The CPI report, what it did, it saw the 10-year US Treasury yields return back down to 3.8%, and that's 40 basis points lower from where they were at their intra-week high at 4.2%. And at the same time, the US dollar index also returned to the 108 level after trading at around the 111 level in the first thing Monday morning. So what we saw is stock sectors that really got the most relief from that result were REITs. The US REITs basically put on double the overnight moves that the Dow Jones index put on. So the upshot of all of it is that for the next FOMC on the 14th of December, we're now at 85% expectations for a 50 basis point hike and at 15% expectations for a 75 basis point hike. And more importantly, too, the longer term expectations have seen a little bit of a more moderate hawkish shift. So the peak, or the terminal rate as it's referred to, is now seen at 475 to 500 basis points. That's down from 500 to 525 basis points that we were looking at previously. So lots to happen. Those two in December, two big dates. The 13th of December will be the November CPI, and then the 14th of December will be the US FOMC.
And before we get to December, Jeff, what are you going to be looking out for in the week ahead?
We've got more earnings. Sembcorp Marine, as we said.
Right.
We've got Asia Pay Television Trust, ASL Marine, Golden Agri Resources, iWow Tech, CSE Global among the stocks that are going to report. For our economic data, a key one is on Thursday, the October NODX number. So far in Singapore, for the first 9 months of the year, our NODX is up 9.1% year to date, and that's after 12.1% growth next year. So what is a concern is that we have recently seen exports to China decline in the vicinity of 30% year on year in September, after seeing a decline in the vicinity of 20% back in August. So China's economy remains a key variable. The NODX growth is expected to weaken next year as well, and I think consensus expectations for the number on Thursday is for a 2% year on year decline. I should also mention the big backdrop, because this is important. It's not just growth and it's not just inflation.
Yeah.
It's also trade, and the IMF see global trade volume growth to decelerate more. So we went from 10.1% in 2021, going to 3.2% in 2022, and expected to moderate even further to 2.7% in 2023. But on that trade front, precursor, we'll get more information next week with the China October economic data as well.
Okay, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Anything fun planned for the weekend, Jeff?
No, just more rest, actually.
Oh,
Still got I did 5 presentations this week, and I think I've hurt the throat again, so I need to work on that.
Okay, well, you better take it easy, rest up, drink lots of water, vitamin C.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Hongbin. Have a great weekend.
Thank
you.
Jeff. We've been speaking with Jeff Howie, market strategist at the SGX, for a roundup of how markets have performed this week and what to look out for in the week ahead. Thank you for joining us on social media for Money FM 89.3 this Friday afternoon. Now, before I let you go, I just want to share with you a session that I'm going to be involved in next Friday. So this is the Governance of Charities. They're holding a session. It's called From Intent to Implementation. This is their annual seminar, the annual seminar of the Shared Services for Charities. It's being held at the SGX Auditorium. I'm going to be speaking on a panel with SGX, SIAS, as well as the Singapore Repertoire Theatre. We're going to talk about What's coming up? What are some of the concerns for charities when it comes to governance? Maybe some examples from listed companies and how that might be relevant to charities. So if you want to join us for that, it's next Friday, the 18th. You can go and check it out on their website. Anyway, we'll let you go for today. Hongbin and I will be back with you on Monday on your radio stations. And prime time is coming up in half an hour. So keep it here on Money FM 89.3.
Money FM 89.3. Money FM 89.3.